Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Free Tifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Crazy Enough to Work, written by AntiMoneySquandering. What the hell is this stuff? The human screwed his face up at the bitter taste of the liquid that still clung to his throat. His alien companion seated at the table all laughed at his discomfort, save for the sole other human who now eyed her own drink with a healthy measure of distrust. The first stopped wiping his mouth when he noticed. No way, you have to drink it, Saren, no bitching out. The aliens hollered their agreement at this as Saren stared daggers at him, taking a deep breath before downing the bright yellow liquid in front of her. Fucking awful, she gagged, grabbing a less offensive beverage from a nearby and chugging it heavily. She slammed the bottle down and stabbed an accusing finger at a human comrade. You're a prick, Sam. You know that. Sam protested his innocence as his pointing finger moved, passing Sam and an ice stalk's wide spin tock until it rested on a grinning Venet, his fur an unusual bright ginger. And screw you in particular, Taven. Do your shot. The Venet glanced down at the glass that lay in front of him, its contents identical to that which now resided in the protesting stomachs of the humans. He looked back up and picked at his fangs with one curled claw, his prehensile tail, reaching up to slide the drink over to the quiet Spintock.
Unfortunately, Taven cannot, fellas. This drink is poisonous to Taven's kind.
Seren paused, frowning at him before glaring over to Sam, who was shaking his head and trying to suppress a smile. Bullshit.
Okay, fine. It's not poisonous. It just tastes disgusting.
Right. You're drinking it where? Serene looked over to where the Spintock blinked back at her guiltily, its long tongue snaking out of the now empty glass. It burped softly, emitting a honey-like scent of contentment even as it apologized.
Sorry, Seren, but villain nectar is just delicious. It is not my fault that you inferior species have such undeveloped palates.
The Spintock flinched as the Venet's long tail suddenly draped over its body, its spines rising slightly in response and lifting it partially into the air. Taven's palate is to meat, spiky one, so less insults, yes? The Spintock's scent glands released a bitterer aroma to reflect its nerves, until Sam reached over and batted him on one of his long ears, causing him to snarl back, before breaking into a growling laughter. As the others joined in, another Venet strode over, slamming down the tray of drinks that it had just been carrying. Two overturned and flooded the table, causing some to drip over Seren, who jumped up angrily. Oh, come on, Leela. I bought this outfit specifically for our first proper outing in this part of space. What even is this? You're paying to have it?
Quiet, fellas.
Leela snarled, and Taven sat up straight at a tone, his many eyes now searching for threats in the dingy, small-world tavern they had found themselves in. Lilia caught his gaze and flicked her gaze to the door, her claws drumming nervously on the table.
Lilia, just heard from the others at the bar. These are Narrated reavers here, coming to this place.
Sven swore, his tail now whipping angrily behind him as Spintock's spines stood nearly straight up in alarm. Sorry, a what? A Narrated what? Sams asked, taking advantage of the confusion to grab one of the still full drinks and take a swig. They're reptilian aliens. We've seen hollows of them, but never seen them in the flesh. Big bastards. The two Venet ignored him, growling at each other quietly, and their tails thrashing aggressively through the air. Seren followed Sam's lead and also grabbed a full drink, wrinkling her nose at the rotten smell now coming from the squirming Spintock.
They're part of the council, right? So what's wrong?
Taven and Lilia snarled at each other for a moment longer before the female Venet finally addressed the nonplussed humans.
The species has joined, yes. There are still pockets of resistance. They have a long history as a warmongering race. Lilia's people do as well, but the Narrated more so. Some of these have resorted to piracy, living as they claimed their ancestors did. They take great pleasure in ignoring the terms of the council. There are not many. They are hunted down swiftly, often by their own kind. They tend to not be the smartest members of their species. Many Narrated denounce them as idiots stuck in the past, but... Okay, it's bad news if they're here, Sam finished, concern finally crossing his face.
What are our options?
We can run,
The Spintock squeaked, his spines rattling gently against his head, his eye stalks wavering as he looked around the group. The Vanet automatically grunted their aversion, flexing their claws. Their constant glances towards the small barred doors betrayed their true feelings. I guess fighting is out of the question. Did anyone even bring a gun? Seren asked, glancing around the waists of her companions and shaking her head. I thought this was a safe place.
Normally it is,
growled Taven, baring his fangs as he spat on the floor. The odds on the Dreaded Reavers turning up. The aliens continued to grow, increasingly agitated. The sole Venet behind the bar now holding some sort of large weapon in his claws. His thrashing tail and Taven's dismissive look suggested that it would not prove effective, if it was even intended to fire lethal shots. Sam looked at Saren and raised an eyebrow, biting his lips slightly. Hush it, you have an idea, don't you? Saren sighed before he could speak up. Fine, let's hear it. Sam turned to the wider table, banging his fists down until they all turned to look at him with varying expressions. What do you guys actually know about humans? The aliens stared back at him in silence, potentially wondering if their translators had grown faulty, as they tried to connect the question to their current predicament. Saren mirrored their expression before a small grin spread across her face.
I would say that we have grown to know more since our travels together,
the Spintock offered in a small voice, the two Vanets still staring quietly.
But you have not been here long. We would certainly know less than the other sentient species, I would wager.
And these Reavers, they're cut off from the Council more than other Dralids, right? Saren asked, aiming her question at Lilia, who flicked her ears, confused.
Yes, the Reavers refuse to join the relative civility of the Council offers,
she admitted, her black tail slowing to a gradual weave through the air.
They have no interest in such matters.
So they probably have never met a human before, Sam finished for Saren, matching her now enthusiastic grin, though both were tinged with a hint of hysteria at what they had planned. Unfortunate for them, given humans are some of the most dangerous sentients to ever walk this universe. The Vanet glanced at each other for a moment, blinking, before turning to watch Sam and Saren stroll over to their own table, adopting deliberate, relaxed poses. But you are soft, Tevin said.
Squidgy,
Lilia said.
I find you a little imposing,
offered the minuscule Spintock, downing another shot in the bright yellow liquid. I know that, Saren said exasperatedly. Remind me to play you guys in poker sometime. The aliens continued to stare blankly at the humans until Saren sighed angrily. Just play along, we're terrified, we're the worst. A Dralid is nothing compared to us. But, Lilia began, stopping with a slight snarl as two large aliens ducked into the bar. They strode in aggressively, the large talons on their bare feet clicking loudly on the floor. They stood taller than the Vanet, meaning they towered over the humans. The nearest one turned to face the table with the Vanets and Spintock, flexing its powerful scaled arms and hissing, the noise echoing around the silence that had descended on the bar. Its comrade began to laugh, dragging its claws down a table as it walked further into the room. It stopped, cocking its head slightly as it looked over at the two humans seated on their own. Saren stared back, hands entwined behind her head as she rested her feet on the table in front of her. Sam forced out a laugh of his own and stood, keeping his eyes locked on the large lizard as he made his way to the table of his friends. And what the fuck is this thing meant to be? The bar returned to silence as the patrons collectively held their breath while the Drellids tried to work out if that could possibly be addressed to them. The one in front swung its ponderous head back to look at the other, whose tongue flicked out as it shrugged its heavy shoulders. What did you say? What are you, creature? Sam risked a small sigh of relief and raised himself up to his unimpressive full height. What am I? Are you deaf, alien? I don't see any ears, so you might be. What am I? He turned and thumped his fist down on his friend's table, causing the three aliens there to jump with shock, something he played up to immediately. I'm talking to you, you furry fuck. What am I? Taven's lips bared back before he managed to repress the snarl, forcing himself to dip his snout down and answer meekly, though his tail whipped in the air behind him. Human, he muttered, then louder when he realized the Dralids could likely not hear him. "It's a human, for clan's sake, don't piss it off." Sam winked at Teven, who ignored him, keeping his head down. "First time meeting a human, is it? Well, maybe we'll let you live then. Spread the word." "Let us live," the Dralid further back said slowly, trying to make sense of what was being said to it. It looked around the room, but it was empty save for still relaxing Saren and the bar alien, who, to his credit, had decided to play along, and now aimed his weapon at her rather than the lizard-like aliens. The Dralid took this in, scratching up that leathery fold in the snout with a quickly curved claw. "You do not look like a predator species." Sam laughed again, loud as he was able, and Saren joined in, kicking the chair over and jumping to her feet. "Look like a predator species? You never been to our neck of the galaxy, aliens. If we looked too predatory, well..." She strolled over to Lilia, slapping a small hand onto her muscled, furred shoulder. Lilia made a passable imitation of flinching under her touch, even of offering a small whimper up. "That would give the prey the chance to get away before we had our fun with it, wouldn't it?" The Dralids looked at each other once more, the lead alien even taking a few steps back so they could converse in private. As they did so, Sam carelessly flicked at Tevin's ear, causing him to yelp in real pain, his body shaking as he struggled to control his anger. Seeing the Dralids watching, he instead knelt beside his chair, throat revealed and extended in a sign of submission. The Dralid stood back, blinking amber eyes at the two odd humans. "You have no fangs," one pointed out, bearing its own as if to help them understand. "No claws." "Hung up on that, aren't you? Our species are known for letting you think that we would be an easy kill, luring you in. Humans have more ways of killing you than you have scales." She turned to the Spintalk, eyes wide in the hopes they would pick up her meaning, and thrust her neck forward aggressively, sending a globule of clear spittle flying out to land upon the alien. The Spintalk did nothing at first, before causing its eye stalks to fall limply on its head, letting out a painfully high-pitched scream and sliding from its chair to fall prone under the table. Saren then turned to the Dralids, both now slightly crouched and hissing at her as she stepped slightly closer. "Do you know, I've never used it on your kind before. It's worked on every other radiant species we've encountered, but perhaps it would be fun to check. And we only need one of you alive to spread humanity's name after all." The two Dralids hissed louder, and one took half a step towards Saren. She held her ground, staring up at the 7-foot alien, though Sam noticed her back legs shake slightly. Before it could escalate, he stepped out from the table. "Such a primitive tool," he announced loudly, drawing the scaled alien's attention back to him. "Fun, yes, but you don't seem to understand, aliens. We are the apex predators of this universe. We have mastered things that you couldn't dream of. We could kill you without coming anywhere near you." Sam turned his gaze on Lilia, winking with an eye hidden from the Dralid. He then raised one hand to his head, squinting his eyes and putting as much emphasis into his glare as he could. After a moment, Lilia began to whimper, growling into a resonating scream as she dug her claws into her own head, hard enough to draw a trickle of blood, and crashed to the floor, convulsing for a few moments. The Dralid hissed louder as Sam moved his hand from his head, smiling at the aliens. They looked at each other and made a gesture, the one nearest the door turning sharply and fleeing. The other followed suit, but not before it hooked the chair in its claws and flung it behind, catching Saren in the side as she dived to avoid it. She crashed heavily to the floor and Sam ran to her side, looking up to see the Dralid had noticed the hit. Luckily, it seemed to have been a tactic to cover their escape, and the bar was now empty save for the humans and non-scaled aliens. Sam lifted Saren to her feet, who winced as her arm hung limply. "Ah, shit, I think it's broken," she muttered, touching it with her good arm and swearing as the pain flared up. The Venet and Spintalk had now gotten back to their feet, Lilia dabbing away the blood matted in her fur. Saren smiled despite her broken arm. "Bloody good job, teen. I didn't know you had acting experience. We'll have to set up a show on the ship sometime." "What was that?" Tevin snarled, his tail switching. "Lies! We survived because of human lies. Tevin does not understand how that was successful." Sam threw Seren's good arm over his shoulder and helped her towards the door, keen to leave before more curious aliens appeared. He called over his shoulder to Tevin, and the aliens reluctantly followed them. We humans have a saying, Tevin, one that probably sums up our entire spacefaring journey to date, actually. He paused to throw a grin back at the nonplussed aliens. Just crazy enough to work. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster117, Casper Arnholtz, Draxzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.